It's Wednesday. It's the 1st of October. It's a brand new month. Welcome in. And today we have another special guest. The special guest, they just keep coming. And it's such an honor to have,
Meet agreement gene.
sorry, guys, such an honor to have all of these great teachers, students. Remember that we teach that which we most need to learn. We are both teachers and students at the same time. Today is Lorri Coburn, and she is author of Breaking Free. We've had this book for several months. Been working through it slowly, along with a few others, and it is a book. It's a companion book. It's a good book to have with you, to have on your bedside, to read a little bit before you go to bed, or read a little bit when you wake up in the morning. Hey, Ellie, and Stitch, my friend, Norman. Guys, I will be largely out of the chat for the duration of the conversation until we'll see if Lorri wants to answer some questions as we go through. I know a few people already have some. A friend of ours actually already sent me a question related me to ask. So, when Lorri is ready to come up, and we'll tell you a little. I'm going to let Lorri tell you a little bit about herself instead of me attempting. Hey, Lee. But I think you are going to enjoy getting to know Lorri. She has been a practicing therapist. She has a degree in sociology, I believe. She's a practicing therapist and a long time practitioner of the course. And here she comes. Hi, Lorri.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you?
Okay. I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
You know what? I love reaching out to course students because, and teachers, I should say, students and teachers. I always get such a warm and loving response. So enthusiastic with yes, I'd love to come up and talk about the course without fail. They always do. And I absolutely love that. So basically, as I told people when they come up, it's just an extended conversation, less of an interview, and just getting to know someone who, because of your book, it resonated very strongly. And the course has been part of my life since the mid 1990s, varying degrees of um, intensity with my study and my practice. But since 2007 ish, it's been a steady presence. And I think you and I have the same reason. Reading Gary Renard, Disappearance of the Universe, really deepened my study and gave me, back to that word, enthusiasm. It made me enthused. It took what seemed to be a struggle for a long time and breathed life into my practice. If you'd be willing to tell us a little bit about your journey with the course.
Sure. Sure. So I first learned about A Course in Miracles in, excuse me, 1986. And I was at a Unity church and they had A Course in Miracles meeting, but I didn't go to it, but I bought the book. And I went through the entire book on my own and didn't understand it at all. But when I went back, that was when they had the 3 volumes.
Mm-hmm.
When I went back, I had a lot of underlines, but the only thing I remember getting from it was that if you attack somebody else, you're actually attacking yourself. And I also got the importance of forgiveness, although I did not understand true forgiveness at
Right.
that time. So then, like you said, when Gary Renard came out with his Disappearance of the Universe in 2003, my minister at my interfaith center said, "This book is the best book I've ever read." And I teased him and I said, "Oh, Dave, every book is the best you've ever read." But then I came back a couple weeks later and said, "Oh my God, this is the best book I've ever read other than the course itself." And I read it 7 times because I just wanted to take it all in and absorb it. And I always thought that I was going to write a book someday. And I had started and stopped different relationship books, health, self-help books, because I was a psychotherapist, and it never felt right. And a psychic a long time ago said, "Oh, you're going to write a book," and I said, I said, there's thousands of self-help books out there. We don't need another one." And she goes, "No, yours is going to be a little different, and it's going to help a lot of people." So when um, I had been in a relationship, a very difficult relationship, and it had ended many years before, but I was still holding massive grievances against this person, constantly obsessed about what he did to me, and or what I thought he did to me. And at one point, and this is about in 2005, so 2 years after I read Gary Renard's book and started studying the course again. And at one point I said, I have got to stop making him wrong. And that was coming from the course. And a week later, this book just poured out of me. I don't feel like I wrote it so much as just organized it.
I think we froze for a second. I'm gonna hold up your book real quick, Breaking Free, and it is you know, you gotta. I could see the influence from Gary in the way that it is it's a snippet of the course that you literally are getting the essence of A Course in Miracles uh, in the pages that you wrote. Uh, there's certain books that even if you don't study the course, you can read them and you can walk away with the essence of the course, and you have tools, valuable tools, to work with. And Gary's book is one of those, and your book for sure is one of those.
Oh,
Some of your
thank
stories.
you. Know, yeah, that's people learn from stories. Stories are easy to remember, and that's what they remember. You can talk about concepts all day long, but people will remember the story.
Especially your story, and I hope you don't mind me bringing it up. I know it, as described in your book, it was a heartbreaking episode for you when you lost custody of your daughter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So, yeah, that one I had to forgive. I had to forgive my ex-husband. And the thing is we had seen several psychological evaluators, and they all said we were both good parents. But he was a pit bull, and he was going to get her no matter what because he was very angry at me for leaving him. And, in hindsight, um, my daughter was closer to her dad, and it was good that she was raised with him, I think. But at the time, for me, it was absolutely devastating. And what's really interesting in terms of karmic come around, he passed away about 5 years ago, and when he transitioned, I felt a connection with him, like we were back together. We were one again. And since that time, my daughter, she had a baby at the time, but she's had two more. She has had twins since. So she has three children, and I'm there all the time. I'm helping raise them. So what was taken away with my daughter, I wasn't allowed to raise her the way I would have liked to, but it's come around, and now I'm raising her children. So it's kind of nice.
and none of that would have happened, do you think, if it wasn't for the practice of forgiveness?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because you can't hold that grudge. I was on antidepressants because I was in so much hatred and rage toward him. And once I forgave him, I was able to come off the antidepressants.
Um, can you share a little bit with us from your perspective on uh, how is this forgiveness? How is the forgiveness presented from the course different from the traditional? And you come from um, uh, originally, am I getting it right? An evangelical born again faith early on.
Yeah. Yes, it was free Methodist. Yeah. Which
So
is not free. It was very strict.
right, how is the forgiveness that you were raised in then different from the forgiveness that you came to through A Course in Miracles?
Well, the forgiveness I was raised in would be I, as the magnanimous person, will forgive you for being such a creep and doing every bad thing that you did. Whereas the Course in Miracles forgiveness is what helped me. Because if I hadn't taken full responsibility for asking for this experience with my ex-husband and the custody and everything, I don't think I could have ever forgiven it. I looked at it, it's all a dream. I'm a character in the dream. My daughter's a character in the dream. He was a character in the dream. And it all happened for awakening. It happened for growth, for getting back to God. And I definitely would not have gotten to that place without A Course in Miracles.
Um, so I think sometimes, I think three things that really confuse a lot of people when they come to the course or they first hear someone talk about the course is forgiveness and a different type of forgiveness, that it is not a bargaining process. I will forgive you as long as you promise, as long as I know you're sorry, as long as I know that you're suffering because of what you've done, as long as, and we just have this endless list. But if you break any one of those things, so then my forgiveness is revoked. I'm going to take it away from you. So you better be watchful of what you do because I'm watchful. The dream is another one that coming to terms, even though, and you actually mentioned it in your book, that it's an ancient concept of the universe being a dream, Maya from Hinduism, from Buddhism, the Gnostics all believe that. But the course takes it a little bit deeper. And the third thing is the representation of the ego and what it is and what are we supposed to do with it. Um, so which one you want to talk about first, the dream or the
Um,
ego?
well, let's talk about the dream first, because that sets the stage for the ego. Um, the dream, when I first heard the concept of the dream, it was back when I was 20 years old, and I didn't get to the Course in Miracles until I was in my 40s. I mean, I did it when I was in my late 20s, but set it down for 17 years.
Right.
Didn't understand it till my 40s. But when I first heard the concept of the dream, it was like, oh, well, that's interesting. But it just went right over my head, and I didn't think any more about it. And then at one point, I read a book by Paramahansa Yogananda, and in that book, he was saying he was talking to God and saying, "But God, there's so much suffering. It's awful." And God was saying, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's just a dream." And that made me angry because I always felt like, what is wrong with this world? There's so much suffering. And if God made a world with this much suffering, that's not a God that I like. And I was angry with God for a long, long time. And so when I got to A Course in Miracles and it said that it's a dream, but it's also a dream that we are making up. We think we've separated from God. We think we're these dream figures, these characters in the dream, and we're making it up moment by moment and through all the lifetimes that, if you believe in reincarnation, that made sense to me because it took God out of the authorship of the dream. And so that set me free.
Um, what about, this is where I think people start running to a little bit of trouble. What about all the beautiful stuff in the world too?
Yeah, there's a lot of beautiful stuff in the world. And I remember back when I saw Gary Renard when he was on his original book tour, and he said, "Oh, that sunset is in your mind." And that concept was, what are you talking about? The sunset's out there. The sunset happens every day. The sunset is not in my mind. And so it's a concept that really cannot be grasped by the logical mind. So what happens is as we do the workbook lessons of the course, our mind starts shifting, and our identification becomes more and more with our Christ self, our true self, our higher self. And it gets, you wake up from the dream and you start recognizing, oh, everything is mind, and this mind is dreaming a dream. And it's one mind, it's a collective mind. It's not my personal mind. It's one mind dreaming 8 billion people with seeming personal dreams. And when you get to there, you go, oh, all this beauty, all the beautiful trees, the ocean, the flowers. I love flowers. And that was like, what do you mean these flowers are in my mind? Um, at that point, when I started recognizing the power of my mind to make up a dream, to make up all these things, then that beauty is also in my mind and I can access it anytime. So that's how I've dealt with the outside, so seemingly outside beautiful things.
Um, it was a beautiful description. I I really like that, and I think people like to sort of hear, uh, maybe eventually, that okay, so the bad stuff is a dream. I can let that go. Although we do become very attached to the bad stuff as well. Uh, we don't want to let that go. Hey, uh, and very often someone will hold up a scar and say, "This shows you who I am. This shows me who I am." And of course, it's a mark on the body that has a story to it.
Mhm.
And we continue to carry that story with us, and it stays open as a wound. Um, and then at the same time, as you were saying, the beautiful stuff is as well hard to get let go of. But it's also a process. It's something that you read and say, okay, it's all a dream, and everything instantly
Mhm.
is handled. That we do had a conversation with Dave Fair last night, and we talked about putting the work in. It's a process. Forgiveness isn't one and done. Waking
Mhm.
up from the dream isn't a sudden aha, I'm awake. And it is a continuous practice and practice and practice. Unfortunately, life gives us a whole bunch of stuff uh, to aid us with our practice, um, moment by moment. And I think you're right. That does set it up nicely for the ego. Um,
Yeah. And that's been a concept that has helped me so much. You can get one idea that absolutely changes your life, and then another idea that completely changes your life. And the first idea that changed my life was God did not create this world. When I heard that, that was the first time I'd ever heard that. And it answered all my questions right there. So I was so grateful because I came back to God. But then the second aspect of that is if God did not create the physical world, then God did not create bodies. And God did not create us as separate individual bodies that are struggling and competing with each other and striving to survive. Because I've always felt, or before the course, it was like, oh gosh, this is hard. This life is hard. Why do we have to struggle so much? Why do we have to keep working at it and working at it and working at it? So when I learned that the ego thought system was just that, it was a thought system, an entire thought system of its own, and that was the dream. And we have the counterpart to that, which is the Holy Spirit's thought system, which sees the ego thought system and doesn't react to it because it knows it's not real and only responds with love, everything. That concept also completely changed me. So I often will explain to people, I'll say, um, the ego thought system is like this, and then the Holy Spirit's system is like this, and they're not together because this one is completely unreal. And so when you wake up, it goes away, and you're left with the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the world and interpretation of all seeming events. And that is what brings the peace and the happiness and the freedom.
um, I know a lot of people who, when they hear the, especially in other spiritual traditions, talk about the problems that the ego brings with it, are ready to go to battle with the ego. They're ready to suit up, and I'm going to eradicate the ego. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to meditate until I don't have a single thought in my mind. I'm going to sit under the Buddha tree and not going to move until the ego is gone, which of course the ego loves because now we've given it a mission. Um, and we put that, the stick and the carrot right in front of it, and it's going to spend a lifetime, literally, trying to eliminate itself, which just strengthens it. We've given ourselves this identity. I'm so spiritual that I don't have an ego. I'm so spiritual that I don't have a single thought in my mind. Um, and at the same time, they're not very often pleasant people because they're preoccupied with that. The search, they're preoccupied with that battle with the ego. And what I love about the course is it doesn't tell you to suit up, to just be aware. And as you see through it, everything happens on its own.
It does. It does. Because as you do the workbook lessons, you're turning your mind over to the Holy Spirit, and your mind is undone. The wrong mind is undone for you. There's this really lovely section in chapter 14, section 4, paragraph 6, where it says, when you have learned to decide with the Holy Spirit, everything becomes right and as right and easy as breathing. You will feel as if you're being carried down a quiet path in summer. And then later in that paragraph, it says, the Holy Spirit will not only tell you what to do, he will do it for you. So life becomes so easy and so nice. And you're right, in terms of fighting the ego, um, I we all have an ego. We all have, or we all think we have an ego, and the ego is ugly, and the ego rears up sometimes at the most unexpected times. And I've gotten to the place over the last number of years where it's just like, oh, that's just ego. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to feel ashamed of it. I don't have to fight it. And the course actually literally says, do not fight the ego. That's a sentence. Do not fight the ego because it's nothing. You're making nothing real when you fight it.
Um, and that really does simplify it. That not easy, but simplifies that because we'll still choose the ego um, over and over, even after practicing the course, where um, we still find ourselves drawn into the ego. But as soon as we realize that we have uh, another source that actually is helpful, another choice that is always loving, a loving choice that urges us to forgive, and not only that, teaches us how to really forgive. Um,
Right.
that's when it becomes easy. Because,
Oh,
go ahead.
oh, yeah, that's when it becomes easy. And that's actually the only freedom. When I work with clients, it's always your ego self, all your fears, all your anger, all your hatred, all your sadness, all your stories. That's all the dream character. That's all the ego. And that's not who you are. You are the Christ self. You are peaceful, loving, joyful. You're at home with God now. And so rather than trying to fix their egos or fix what they think they've done wrong, my work is always with people to get to their true identity and just completely let that go. Just that's not who I am. So, and that's something that happened with me is I had depression for well, decades actually. And at one point, I listened to Lisa Natoli. She is just a wonderful, wonderful Course in Miracles teacher. And she had said, I'm going to, I'm done with conflict. I am letting go of all conflict. And that felt way too big for me. And I thought, but you know what? I can be done with depression. I can be done with depression. So for the next year, every time a thought of depression came up, I would say, nope, that's not who I am. I'm a holy child of God. God doesn't create depression. I am whole. I am complete. And so I'm not a child of my mother who had depression. I'm not a function of the stories where in the past I had broken things and slammed doors and screamed and yelled and wrecked relationships because of the depression. That's not who I am. And I just kept saying that. That's not who I am. I didn't fight it. That's not who I am. And after about a year of that, decades of depression went away and have not come back. And that's about 12 years ago or so. I'm 10, I don't know how many years, but
Well, funny you said that. Holy child, holy son of God, because for me, um, my workbook lesson of the day was lesson 40, that I'm a blessed son of God, and then you add on attributes of the Son of God, and you can really see the practicality of when we say that I am a blessed son of God, I'm a holy son of God, and you could say my attribute is, and I am free of depression, that I am free of that which harmful thoughts that have held me back, whatever attribute is fitting for you. Uh,
mhm,
the course, above all else, is practical.
mhm.
If you want to be
Yes.
happy, learn to forgive. If you want to free yourself from depression, learn to forgive, learn to choose the Holy Spirit, learn to see through the dream. And I love that practicality of it.
Yeah. And so some of the things too, when I think of things that I think I've done as an ego, stories in my past, some of them there's no way I could forgive them. And the ego can never forgive. The shame around that and the sadness and grief and the anger, I can't do it. But I know that it's already done and that's not who I am and that that was all the dream, which means it's done for me.
Um, so, circling back to the dream, who is it who's the dreamer?
Well, um, that's a really good question because sometimes I wonder if is it the higher self that's dreaming? I mean, the Christ self that's dreaming, or is it just an aspect of us? I'm not really sure. I mean, I know that our minds are really powerful. Apparently, it's the one self that's dreaming a dream of separation from God, but would the Christ self at home with God be dreaming? I don't know. Those technicalities on that, I don't know.
Right. And the wonderful thing is, we don't really have to know. Um, it is a mystery, and it is also whatever term we give it isn't the actuality. It's just a description, as the course says, a symbol of a symbol twice removed.
Mhm. Right, right.
Um, I love I love the idea of being an idea in the mind of God, um, and that within that great infinite mind of which we existed, that tiny mad idea crept in. What would it be like if we were our own creator? What would it be like if we were autonomous or if we were special? And because we are endowed, whatever it is that we are, a thought, an aspect, part of the Christ mind, whatever it is, we are endowed with the same power as the creator itself, except for one, we can never create ourselves. But we can instantly dream a universe into being in which to hide from because we're uh, feeling pretty guilty that we had such a mad idea.
Hmm. Yeah. Mhm.
How much in your, a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about your practice as a therapist and how the course worked within that framework, but how much of that guilt, the inherent guilt that we have, what we could call original sin, um, although a different concept with the course, plays out in all the all the things that affect us through life that you had to address as a therapist.
Well, I think guilt is primordial. And if you think of the first story in the Bible, it's, Adam and Eve ate from the tree where they weren't supposed to eat, and then they felt ashamed and guilty. So, and if we look at once we're born, the second we are born, we are struggling. We're struggling to live. We're struggling to survive. We have all these needs. And if and then when we start developing an ego, when we're little kids, when about maybe a year and a half old, when kids start realizing they're separate, um, they're trying to get their mom and dad to be proud of them. And they're trying to prove themselves. They walk and then they poop and then they learn words and they do all these things and they feel proud of themselves. But if they don't do it right, they feel guilty. And so it's like this guilt that we feel is so deep that the course talks about it as a very deep thing that we're not even aware of. And and it does go down to the very essence. So a lot of people can't relate to the guilt. Like, I don't feel guilty. And when I first read the course, I thought, I don't feel guilty. But then the course says the outer world is what's showing you what's in your mind. So when I had this court case and I was found guilty, I wasn't guilty, but I didn't get my child. It was like, oh, well, I guess I do feel guilty. I still didn't feel guilty. I was just at the people who took my daughter from me, they're the ones. But when I took it in and went, oh, I guess I do feel guilty because this is my dream. Oh, okay. But it's so buried. But if you think about kids who leave home, um, teenagers who rebel and leave home, and they then feel like they have to fight against their parents in order to leave because they feel guilty. They feel guilty leaving their parents. So, because the idea of feeling guilty from separating from God is so abstract that for me, it's been hard to understand unless I bring it into psychological development that I do experience.
So, as the course says, that our perception of the world, and I don't think anyone can look around the world. And again, there's all kinds of beautiful stuff, but at the same time, we're seeing crime, we're seeing warfare, we're seeing division, political and otherwise, um, and that is the result of our projection. So if we didn't have those thoughts of guilt, if they weren't manifested in fear and resentment and grievances, uh, we would be perceiving a much different world,
Hmm. Hmm.
which would be what the course calls the happier dream.
Right. And I think probably most of us in the course have experienced things where we have forgiven something and then shifts happen or seem to happen in the outer world where it's like, oh, I know that happened as a result of forgiveness. I have an interesting story about COVID. Do you mind if I tell it?
Sure.
Um, it was about this guilt and shame. And well, with when COVID happened, I was actually down in Mexico, and I was really grateful because uh, I've always felt taken care of by God, and know that things just happen in my life where I'm just taken care of. And I was plopped down in Mexico in this nice resort town with my former partner. Um, and he paid for everything. And I was there for 5 months during the pandemic. I mean, it's just a beautiful place to be, instead of being in lockdown and everything. It was just great. I was so blessed. Well, when they started opening up the restaurants back again down there, uh, we were walking to this restaurant, and he had crossed the street. It was a busy street, so you always had to take whatever chance you could to cross it. He crossed the street ahead of me, and I'm coming down the street, and coming down the main road were these armed trucks with these blue and red lights, and each truck had six armed men with their assault rifles in each truck, and they were coming down, and I'm going, all right, because I thought maybe I was not in favor of vaccinations. So I thought, okay, they're going to force people to be vaccinated, and I'm not going to do that. And it's like, okay, fine. I don't care about this world. You can kill me first. So I'm going through this whole scenario in my mind. Of course, this is all ego, right? I'm in this whole scenario in my mind of, okay, come at me. I'm just going to come at you so that you'll shoot me and I don't have to deal with all this stuff. You know, so then they pass. I cross the street, get over to the restaurant. It was our favorite restaurant. It had just reopened. And my former partner, he was a very happy-go-lucky kind of guy. And I said to him, I said, so what did you think about those armed trucks? And he goes, "What truck?" I had just been through this whole apocalyptic scenario where I was getting murdered, suicide, like rushing these guys so that they'd kill me. And he didn't even see these trucks with these big blue and red lights. And I said, 12 guys with assault rifles. And it was just so clear to me. What world do you want? Do you want a world of peace like your partner? Or do you want this hateful war? And that completely shifted me. And I forgave the whole COVID thing. I forgave a lot of politics from that episode. It was so clear.
You literally created your own hell in a short period of time.
Yes. And then changed my mind.
What, what an awesome metaphor that, and then changed your mind. We can all do that. And literally any moment we can, and the way we do it is through forgiveness,
Right.
forgiving our projections.
Right. And I had to forgive myself for thinking that I was this person in this screwed up world where there's this pandemic going on and there's all this conflict over get a vaccination, don't get a vaccination, people being forced, all this. I had to forgive myself for my own belief in an external world that could kill me or that I would want to kill it.
Right. Um, so can we touch upon the role that a course has had in your career as a therapist? Um, and were you uh, you're no longer a practicing therapist, or do
Right.
you?
Right.
And what year did that stop?
Oh, long, long time ago, like 2008.
Okay.
Long time ago.
So did the course play a role in the last part of your?
It did. Yes. And well, I got to the place where, the course says there's one problem and one solution. And the one problem is we think we've separated from God, and the one solution is who we haven't. We just need to recognize that we are still home with God and one with God. So I went from working with people with their problems specifically to always bringing them back, like I said earlier, bringing them back to the one solution is who are you? Who are you really? Because when you wake up to who you really are, that solves all the problems within itself. And if you need practical solutions in the world of form, you will get them. But the only freedom is knowing who you are, what you are as the Christ. So yes, it totally affected my work with people because I can't believe in problems anymore. I mean, I just I can't. I used to teach grief courses for a local hospice, and after I did a course, when I got really more aware, I didn't believe what I was teaching anymore, but I still taught it because it was a loving thing to do for people who still believe that they need to go through these stages of grief or that they've actually lost somebody. But I didn't believe what I was teaching anymore. And one of my friends who was relatively awake, um, he used to say, well, once you wake up, he goes, you have to kind of pretend that everything means something.
Um, and I mentioned that quite a bit. That the things that we do are less concerned with the level of form and on the level of the formless. That you know, no one even has to know. We don't have to go up to someone and say, "I forgive you." Um, it's all the matter of the heart. It's all dealing. It's all the mind. Or as the course says, we don't deal with effects uh, because that's an endless task. Uh, Going out in the world and every little effect, um, we go to the cause. And the cause, as you pointed out, is our belief that we are separate from God. Take care of that. Take care of that cause, and all the effects take care of themselves.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes. Yeah, and
and
saw this guy on YouTube, and his name was Gregory Tucker, and he was a Course in Miracles psychologist. And I don't know if he's still alive or around, but he had an interesting take on it. He was working with veterans who had PTSD, and he said, don't be sitting there working with your symptoms of PTSD or with the events that happened in the war. What you want to work with is you think that you're this person who had this dream, had this experience of going to war, and it has uh, totally affected you adversely. So when you work with who are you? Are you this person who is now permanently damaged from the war? Or are you the higher self who had a dream that you went to war? So he totally took it, even with extreme situations like combat veterans.
Well, that is the Ramana Maharshi, the great saint in India,
Mhm.
was his practice that he did an awakening, and that's what he would prescribe to people. Uh, they would come from all over the world for this great spiritual uh, teaching, and it was very simple. He would say, "Ask, who am I?"
Mhm.
and don't accept an answer. Don't accept the easy answer that uh, I am Eric, that I am Lori, that I am a therapist, that I am this or that. Just keep asking, and any answer that comes, you dismiss it and you dismiss it until you get to that mystery, that shrug, and there you are. That's the Christ mind. That's consciousness itself.
Yes, and as you keep doing the workbook lessons or keep reading the course, that comes of its own. It just comes. There comes a point when your identity is much more in Christ self, higher self, I am as God created me, than it is with your ego. So you've turned a corner at that point.
So, what is your You were talking about doing. You just mentioned doing the workbook. Um, how has your own practice uh, through the years? Like, what would it be on a normal basis for you? Do you? Uh, I know a lot of people. They go through the workbook, they read the text, and it's a one and done deal, and which is great if that's what you need. Uh, for me, it has seemed to be every several years I pick up the text and read it again. But lately, it's been almost continuous.
Okay. Yeah, and everyone's different, and I think it's whatever you're led to do. I used to do the workbook lessons daily for many years, probably 10 years, and I haven't done them daily since then. I do them here and there. I get a daily thing through my email, and so I know what the title is. And on ACIM Gather Radio, we do that workbook lesson of the day, but we usually only touch on it, and then we just go talking about whatever application is currently going on in our lives. So, but I go to a study group. I used to run a study group. And so the course is such a part of my being. It's probably just in all my thoughts. Every time I think about anything, it comes with a course phrase or something that's just that much a part of my being. But I don't feel compelled to. And there's a section in the manual for teachers that talks about how should a teacher of God spend his day, and it says beware of thinking that you have to do a certain thing a certain way. Instead, ask for guidance. So a lot of times I'll open the course because something will be on my mind about a certain lesson or a certain phrase, and I'll look that up. That's frequent. And I'll read that particular passage, the workbook lesson, but I don't do anything strictly all the time every day.
Right. I think that was key. What you said, that we already have the presence of the teacher with us at all time, and the course. To mention again, even the course in the course it says it's just symbol of a symbol. Uh, so eventually, even at the end of the course, it says we let it go because we no longer need the symbols. Uh, the course itself is designed to remove the barriers of love, and the Holy Spirit is the voice of love. Or distinction I just read Gary Renard make, um, and I often fall into this, and where I would say that the Holy Spirit is the voice of God, and the distinction that he made, which is so powerful, the Holy Spirit is the voice for God, and that's a big distinction because even the Holy Spirit is a symbol,
Mhm.
uh, but a very useful symbol that is there all the time. So once we have removed those areas and we open to that voice, we always have that resource with us now. It's a beautiful
Right.
experience to finally get to, and as you said, maybe you get through it once when you get through the workbook. Maybe it takes 2 times, 3 times, or maybe you want to do it as a continuous practice. But as
Hmm.
soon as you start turning over all the major things and then the minor things, and then it's just a continuous conversation of, um, the beautiful prayer of, I am here only to be truly helpful. And you just wake up in the morning and that's why I'm here, and that I am content to be wherever he sends me, and that I don't even have to know what to do or what to say. And I've been doing my best in the conversations I've been having with people here in my channel uh, to do that, to not think of it as an interview, but a conversation again of someone that I just really admire, and they always unfold beautifully, and it has with you. You have a
Yeah.
little bit of time to maybe answer some questions?
Sure. Sure. And before you do that, though, I want to say one thing. In terms of that voice for God, have you talked with Corinne Zupko?
I haven't.
She is wonderful. She wrote the book From Anxiety to Love and
Oh,
talks in there about her panic attacks that she was able to, yeah, that book. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Corinne is just a beautiful, beautiful soul. And she calls the voice for God the Holy Spirit. She calls it your inner therapist. And I love that. Her book is all about helping yourself with A Course in Miracles.
It's funny you said that because this morning I was not connected with her on Facebook, but I sent her a message to see if she would like to come up sometime. So I'm waiting to hear back.
One
Um,
mind.
one mind, exactly. Uh, let's see. So we do have some questions off the back, and thank you for recommending her. Um,
Sure.
and if you happen to be connected with her, if you let her know, come on
I
by, hang out.
I'll send. Did you sent it on Facebook? The
Yes,
message. Okay. Through Messenger or just on Facebook itself?
through Messenger.
Okay. Well, after our call, I'll text Corinne and tell her that I was on and that that I brought her up and that you had just contacted her. So yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, let's see. Cat and Jack says, question: how could a new student who is in the middle of all the ugly aspects of child custody, such as yourself once, begin forgiving?
Well, what I would say is let the Holy Spirit do it for you. Because the ego can't forgive. The ego only can hate, but you're not your ego. You are the higher self. You are as God created you. So give it to the Holy Spirit. Say, Holy Spirit, help me to forgive this. Holy Spirit, forgive this for me. Um, with my former husband, I wasn't in A Course in Miracles at the time, but I went to a therapist who was Buddhist, and he said, "Are you ready to forgive your ex-husband?" And I said, "No way." And he asked me 3 times, and I said, "No, he deserves to die in a fiery car crash. I hate him. No." And I quit therapy. I quit. And then, but I knew forgiveness was important, and so I just said, "Okay." And I didn't even know about the Holy Spirit at that time. I just said, "Okay, God, I am willing, but you have to do this for me. I cannot possibly do it." And it was done for me. So that's what I would say. Give it to the Holy Spirit to do for you. And there's that paragraph that I mentioned earlier, chapter 14, section 4, paragraph 6. When you have learned to decide with the Holy Spirit, everything becomes as right and as easy as breathing. Keep going to that.
I love that. And that really does pertain with the situation that you found yourself in. Uh, we have a question from Lee Lu. It says, question for Lorri: how do you explain hot and cold behavior, and can this be influenced or go hand in hand with ego?
Oh yeah, the ego is has a lot of mood swings. The ego is mood swings. And one of the things that I had to unlearn was with my training as a psychotherapist, we were taught, get your clients to feel, 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 feel. Well, actually, when you feel too much, you can actually become addicted to your feelings. And I did not know that until I watched the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, which talked about being addicted to your feelings. And I realized I was addicted to grief and despair, hence the depression that I had. So, if you notice and you step back and you watch your emotions and you say, those are not my emotions. Those are not my thoughts. Those are not my feelings. I am as God created me. And you keep doing that and you keep stepping back. That gives you some distance and it also keeps you from the roller coaster of I'm good, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad. Because you know that the whole roller coaster of feelings is the ego thought system. Because as you are as God created you, you are peaceful and you are loving and you're joyful. And it's more of a state of being than feelings that go hot and cold.
Um, that brings us back to what we talked about before with our identification as the ego, that and that we have to do something with the ego itself, um, which is to me that seems like such a insidious belief that we get stuck in. Okay, so that means I have to do something with the ego. I have to eliminate the ego. I got to fight the ego. Um, but as you were saying, when you recognize it, that is the mood, then the ego is the mood, and you don't have to. Um, Lee says roller coaster, nice analogy. I built half of it myself, Lori, is what he said. Um, but I think you would take it a step further and say we built the whole thing, the whole
Mhm.
roller coaster.
Yeah, the roller coaster, the whole thing is part of the ego thought system. So that's the beauty of the course that says that the whole ego thought system, all the bodies, all the stories of your life, all your lifetimes, everything is the ego thought system. And I have found it hardest to let go of the things I love, the people I love and am attached to, more than letting go of the bad things. But when I recognize that there's only love and there's only loving thoughts in my mind, and that my loved ones who have made their transition, they're still with me. They're in my mind. They're in my being. There's never been any separation. That helps a lot because when you're in a body, you want another body with you, but that's the ego thought system of separation.
Um, I very much appreciate hearing that. Tomorrow is the 4-year anniversary of my father's death. I was his caregiver for a number of years. Um, and even studying the course, there was um, a great deal of suffering involved. And I separate suffering from grief. Grief is a natural expression, uh, but when we add into that, um, I don't want to feel that. It hurts too much. My grief is hurting too much, and that's when we start to suffer. But you know, grief itself is just that pure expression of. I like how Rumi says, it's that the grief we cry out from is our union. It's what it reminds us that we have that connection, as you said. Um, let's see. I have a question that someone sent me that I want to bring up, and it's a little bit long. So this is my friend Praveen. He's in the chat right now. Says after dedicating years of his life to military service, where ruthlessness, fearlessness, combat readiness, and strict discipline become deeply ingrained, how can one generally cultivate and embrace qualities such as forgiveness, calmness, patience, and freedom from anger, both during service and after retirement? And the armed forces, those softer human qualities are often deliberately suppressed for the sake of duty and effectiveness. Yet I believe they are essential for living a peaceful, balanced, and spiritually fulfilling life after service. I sincerely seek your wisdom on how one can consciously reintroduce, and nurture these virtues once they have been conditioned out of our nature.
Okay. Well, wow. Well, I would say that you've picked a tough classroom because the military, and I mean, military is all about death, and death is the crowning achievement of the ego. So when the military is training you to kill, or or to be killed, then you're at the like extreme level. If the ego is a continuum, then the military is probably at the far end of the continuum of the belief in and the worshiping of death. So the fact that you're asking this question already and that you're familiar with A Course in Miracles or Eric's program here shows that you know that there's a part of you that is not that. So what's helpful is to look at the part of you that was dreaming that you were this person who was trained in the military, was in the military, and now is retired from the military. If you can ask the Holy Spirit, because the ego can't do it, it won't ever do it. But if you ask the Holy Spirit for a perception of yourself as I am as God created me, I'm not this person with this story of this military history. I am as God created me, and you work with things like lesson 139, because that lesson basically asks that same question, who am I? It says, I will accept atonement for myself. And it says that every single person who comes into the world comes in here to forget who we really are. And that's such a ludicrous thing because we can't forget who we really are because it's what we really are. So the part of you that's even asking the question, how can I return to peace, is the part of you that is already peaceful. That part of you has never been touched by any story of any military action ever. It has remained perfect and whole and complete in God and will always remain that way. So when you start shifting and start seeing your past as a story that you dreamed, and you start daily accessing and doing the course lessons of, the peace of God is shining in me now, those types of lessons that reinforce this part of you that is whole now, not sometime in the future, but is whole right here, right now. That's how you become peaceful and loving and calm.
That was for you, Praveen. This is a beautiful answer. Um, I appreciate it very much. I I like I always go back to form versus content. That we if our job is to be a soldier, on the level of form we participate as a soldier, but on the level of content, as you said, we're pure, we're whole, we are as God created us. So we're untouched by the. I quoted this the other day, a line from Moby Dick, the Insula Tahiti, that in the violent ocean surrounded by storms, uh, wild winds, there lies an insulated Tahiti that is untouched uh, by all of that, and uh, that's our one mind. That's our who we are, what we are.
Mhm.
This is a question
Well,
that
can you
is a little. Let's. Sorry, go ahead.
one I want to say one more thing about the military experience. When we have these incarnations, we all have specific archetypes. And the warrior archetype is a prominent archetype that a lot of people play. So when we can look at how, say, if you're a teacher or you're a banker or you're a warrior or you're an athlete, these are all archetypes, and we feel compelled to live them out. And we do need to live them out. And when you start waking up to your true identity, you can then step back a little bit and go, oh, I was living out that archetype. It's a story. All archetypes are stories in the world of form. But I am, like you said, the content. I am spirit. I'm not the body that lived out this archetypes. But the archetypes are very helpful because then you go, I had to do it in the ego form. I had to live that military life out. That's what I came for.
Beautiful answer. And thank you for adding that last bit with the archetypes as well. Um, Not really Course in Miracles related, but therapeutically, do psychedelics work with self-realization?
Well, it's interesting. There's different points of view on that. I was just reading something with by Richard Moss, and he talked about the danger of overusing those because then you can become addicted to the experience and wanting these experiences of oneness and expansion and unity and all that. And so I've never had a psychedelic experience where I have experienced the oneness of all things or anything like that. Um, but I have a number of friends who have, and they say that they've been helpful in terms of recognizing their true nature. Um, but it would be careful of trying to have experiences in form like that as opposed to on a daily basis meditating and reading and getting totally in touch with who you really are without needing an external substance to precipitate that.
Very similar to what Huxley said, that it's a wonderful way to step through a beautiful doorway into seeing the ever shifting states of reality. But it's this every time you use it, it's the same doorway over and over again, and it does become addictive. But it's not the true thing in and of itself. Um, I even think of that in terms of meditation, which I've been practicing and teaching for decades. That it's a wonderful experience, and it brings me a great peace of mind that extends past sitting for meditation. But the practice of forgiveness is instantaneous, and I can return to it whatever moment I need to. I don't always, I don't carry my meditation cushion around with me, and I don't always have the chance in the middle of a busy restaurant to plop it on the floor and say, you know, there's a long line. I'm a little agitated. I'm gonna sit on my cushion until I feel better. Um, but I have that forgiveness card up my sleeve every moment. I can pull it out, and I can forgive, and I can forgive continuously. I think it was Patrick Miller who a little chapter in his book on the course, 24/7 forgiveness,
Mm.
and that's what we strive for. Um, we'll do a couple more questions. Let's see. I thought I pinned one. I'm not finding my pinned comments. Miss Pipper said, any ideas about why Course in Miracles was written with masculine emphasis?
I think that's just to counteract Christianity and how Jesus was called the Son of God, and Christianity has often been patriarchal. I mean, you shouldn't say counteract. I should say as a written for those people who were raised in that framework. But yeah, you could substitute she or it. It doesn't matter.
I believe there's actually a gender neutral version uh, out right now.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it seems there's a little. I wasn't aware of this until recently. Um, a little bit of controversy on what course version uh, to use. There's the white version. There's the Robert Perry original version. There's the foundation version. Um, I'd love David Hoffmeister did a little video because he's always asked what version, and his answer was very simply the one that you're drawn to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, Lee says, after finishing the Course of Miracles, do you live and try to adhere by the practices? Does it become embedded in the brain constantly?
Yes. Short answer, yes.
Um, when was it for you where you felt like um, okay, not that I got this, but okay, I have all the tools now at hand. And that sometimes I might reach in the toolbox and pull out the wrong tool, but at least I always have that toolbox with me. Um,
Yeah, I think it was probably about 8 years or so ago where I had this awareness that I think I've turned a corner. I think I am more aware of being in the as the Christ self than being aware of being the ego. And actually, I probably was acting or still was thinking a lot with ego, but the background knowing that I am the Christ self and not the ego was so prevalent that it's like turning a corner. Or another way of putting it would be like on a seesaw where it's like, oh, it flipped. It just flipped. And that's what I tell people is that at some point, it's all going to come together. And to use another metaphor, it's like a big puzzle. And that piece, that final piece goes in, and you go, oh, you've got it.
um, and it's pretty beautiful when that happens, when it does drop, and you find without even giving it consideration that you are handing things over to the Holy Spirit, and that you're
Mhm.
naturally forgiving something that, and you realize after the fact, well, that would have drove me absolutely crazy at a certain point in my life, or someone notices that, you know, hey, that guy just flipped you off in traffic and you didn't even respond, or you smiled, or you just, and you realize this really has taken hold.
Mhm.
And it's literally mind training, which is what the course is.
Yes, the mind training, that's a really important thing to understand that you are training your mind and that when you first start out with the course and you're so identified with all your stories and your history and all your personality traits that the mind training will get you to the place where you watch them, you just observe them. I like how Ken Wapnick used to say, this is a course in looking. So you're just looking at the ego with the Holy Spirit and you're not judging it. And when you stop judging yourself, you stop judging everybody.
Um, you mentioned Ken Wapnick, and this will be the. I don't want to keep you too long. We're usually good for about an hour, a little bit more. Um, Ken Wapnick describes the course as a course as non-dual, a non-dual tradition, non-duality. And every so often, I hear other teachers say, actually, it isn't. Um, and last night, I mentioned we had a wonderful conversation with Dave Fair, and he said the course, it's sort of both. The course starts out as non duality, it begins to take away all the stuff that you think you are. I always thought the first 50 lessons are a path in negation. It's telling you you're not this, you're not that. And that's why it's so difficult to get through those first 50 lessons because I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear all of that. I don't want this taken away from me, my identity. I don't want to think that nothing I see means anything because I have attached a whole lot of meaning to a whole lot of stuff. But the Course tells you just consider that none of this stuff means anything. But then he said you get to what he calls a altruistic uh, path, in which it's not non-dual, it's um, relational. That uh, we are meant to have these differences, these relations, in order to experience the inclusiveness. That I can see you in an altruistic manner. That I can look at you and accept and offer lovingness and tenderness. Um, I don't know if it's a distinction 100% that needs to be made. I find it very beautiful, though. I like that altruistic path. Um, do you think of the course as a non-dual tradition, or do you have another way that you prefer to view it?
I do think of it as a non-dual tradition. It's written, a lot of it is written in duality, and then it leads you to non-duality. So what I really appreciate about it is that it meets you where you're at. So if you still think you're a person living in a real physical objective world, it meets you right there. And then it trains your mind to where you recognize that you are the Holy Son of God, your spirit abiding in the mind of God. So yes, it is non-dual ultimately, but it is a lot of it's written in dualistic terms. And that's why some people say it's not a non-dual path because of the way it's written. But I think it is a non-dual path. And I think also Gary Renard explained the pure non-duality very well in Disappearance of the Universe.
He did, very much so. And for me, I sort of had a background through my practice in yoga in non-duality traditions. I have a lot of friends who are the neo non-dualist, the neo Advaita, and I've often found that in that tradition, people can sort of get stuck in the emptiness aspect and not come to that all inclusiveness. That it's a wonderful thing to realize that the world is springing up from nothingness, but that nothingness is also the pure potentiality of becoming everything. That as awful as the dream can be, and ultimately, it's always a dream. What a powerful mind that we have in order to dream such a thing, and that we have the capacity to dream a happier dream, which is great hope. I might not awaken in this lifetime, but maybe maybe I can start dreaming that happier dream.
I think you probably already are.
Well, thank you. It gives me great hope to know that I am dreaming alongside of mighty companions such as you. So,
Likewise.
Lori, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you so much. Would you consider coming back up sometime and just another conversation?
Sure, that would be fun. There's not a whole lot I like better than talking about A Course in Miracles.
Me too. Any thoughts of another book in the works?
No other book in the works. That one I wrote like 20 years ago, and nothing else has come through.
It's a powerful book, and again, it's Breaking Free. I love the title because it's the book. The book literally shows you how to break free, and if you never wrote another thing, this book stands alone, and it's a powerful testament to you, your life, and how you've lived it. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
So, thank you so much, Lori.
Okay, it's nice to talk to you.
And nice to talk to you guys. We're going to sign off. I will see everyone. We're going to hang out with Squirrel Sniper tonight, and a big thanks. Take care, my friend.
Okay, bye-bye.